Friday, January 26th. Further thought. Read Ellen G. White, The Night of Wrestling, pages 195 to 203, in Patriarchs and Prophets. What can we learn from Jacob's experience about the power of importunate prayer and unreserved trust in God? The Psalms strengthen our faith in God, who is the never-failing refuge for those who entrust their lives into His mighty hands. God will do great things for those who trust in Him. The reason why His professed people have no greater strength is that they trust so much to their own wisdom and do not give the Lord an opportunity to reveal His power in their behalf. He will help His believing children in every emergency if they will place their entire confidence in Him and faithfully obey Him. Ellen G. White, Patriarchs and Prophets, page 493. Yet, some psalms can pose a serious challenge when what they promise and our current situation do not match. At times such as this, we just have to learn to trust in the goodness of God, most powerfully revealed at the cross. Also, at times some psalms can be used to foster false hopes. Jesus' response to Satan's corrupted use of Psalm 91:11-12,
For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone,
shows that trusting God must not be confused with tempting God, Matthew 4, verses 5-7, or presumptuously asking God to do something that is contrary to His will. The greatest victories to the Church of Christ or to the individual Christian are not those that are gained by talent or education, by wealth or the favor of men. They are those victories that are gained in the audience chamber with God, when earnest, agonizing faith lays hold upon the mighty arm of power. Ellen G. White, Patriarchs and Prophets, page 203. Discussion questions. In class, discuss the answer to the last question in Tuesday's study about trusting in God amid adversity and when things go terribly wrong. How does one understand these things, and how they could happen to people, even with all the wonderful promises in the Psalms about God's protection? Think about this too. Did not the psalmist, who wrote about those wonderful promises, suffer adversity or know of faithful people who did as well?
I believe a powerful clue to answering that question is to think of what the three Hebrew boys said to Nebuchadnezzar. They said that even if God did not deliver them, after acknowledging that He has the ability to, there was a caveat that they gave because they knew that even though God had the ability or has the ability to rescue them from the fire, they knew that there's a possibility that He would not have. But even if He did not, they would not bow. The point is just that. When we look into the scriptures, we can talk about the three Hebrew boys and Daniel in the lion's den. We can think of John the Revelator, who was dipped in a drum of boiling oil, who came out unhurt. And we think of the miraculous deliveries that God has done for His people. But there's also the stories of those who did not fare so well. John the Baptist had his head cut off. In fact, all the disciples of Christ, excepting John himself, were persecuted to death. But the thing that is important is that these people have the experience that God has been able to deliver, that God has been able to protect, that God is provider and sustainer. And I think it was Sister White who once said that we have nothing to fear except we forget how God has led us in the past. One very, very important point about this too, when it comes down to the psalmists, is that they did not only write the Psalms looking back at the adversity and how God had delivered them. You can see that some of the Psalms were written while they were going through their adversity because of the language of lament, the cries for help that you can hear in the Psalms. So it is pretty interesting that they knew that God is God in the good times and in the bad.
How can we develop unreserved trust in God in all circumstances? Example Psalm 91:14, Psalm 143:8 and 10, and Psalm 145:18 to 20. What can cause us to lose this confidence? Why is trust in God in good times crucial for learning to trust Him in bad times as well?
When we make a habit of praising God, it becomes a part of us. So that even in the bad times, we will remember to praise Him. And even if during the time we feel a little down and feel like we can't praise right now, or we may even feel like complaining, we are going to remember, because we have developed the habit of praising. We are going to remember, as was said in answer to the first question, that it's only if we forget how God has led us in the past that we are going to lose our faith. And so praising Him in the good times is certainly a habit that's going to help us when we are going through the bad times. I'm speaking from experience, because even as I'm answering these questions, I had me one very horrible week. Things just kept going against me. It has been rough. And sometimes I really felt discouraged. I wonder if God is there. But I instantly realized I'm just being silly, because of how God has delivered in the past.